Hello, I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here to bring you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It's currently the evening of January 15, 2024 in the United States, the morning of January 16, 2024 in the Middle East. Since yesterday I uploaded a summary of the first 100 days of the war, I will be adding in some of the highlights from January 14th as well. Starting with the hostage situation, on January 14th, Hamas released a video showing 3 Israeli hostages, Noar Gamani, Yossi Sharabi, and Itai Seversky. Each of them in the video asked to come home and asked Netanyahu to stop the war. At the end of the video, a caption is shown in Arabic, Hebrew, and English, stating that the fate of these hostages will be disclosed tomorrow, i.e. today. Today, Hamas released a video showing the 3 of them speaking, each of them stating that they are running out of water and food and that they are being treated well by the Al-Qassam brigades, i.e. Hamas's military wing. The video then continues with Noar Gamani speaking. She states that she was held with the other 2 hostages and that the building that they were in was hit by 3 IDF missiles and collapsed upon them. She states that they were all buried in the rubble and Yossi Sharabi was killed. After 2 nights, according to what she's saying, they were relocated, and during the move, Itai was also killed in an IDF strike and that she was injured. She ends by stating that both the hostages that were with her were killed as a result of IDF activity, calling upon Israel to stop the bombings and bring the hostages home. Relating to this, the IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari today stated that the IDF has severe concerns for the life of Itai Seversky and the other hostage in the video, namely Yossi Sharabi, although the family of Yossi Sharabi asked the IDF not to name him, but that the life sign of Noar Gamani is confirmed. I will add that in IDF parlance, saying that the IDF has severe concerns for their lives usually means that the IDF knows that they're dead. However, officially, legally, the IDF cannot say that they're dead unless they're either in possession of their bodies or some tangible proof from their bodies that says that they're dead. Hagari stated that while the life sign from Noar Gamani is considered genuine, the description that she gives of the way Itai Seversky was shot by the IDF is a lie. Regarding the death of Yossi Sharabi, Hagari did not confirm or deny the fact that he was killed in a bombing and that the building collapsed upon them. He added that the building that the hostages were held in was not a target of an IDF attack and that the IDF did not know hostages were being held there. He did add that in retrospect, the IDF knows that the hostages were held in that building and the targets of the attack were buildings nearby. So, in relation to this, while the IDF is not officially confirming this, it appears that there is possibility that 2 more hostages that are held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip are now dead. Other news relating to the hostage situation, more information came in on January 14th regarding the brewing deal regarding the transfer of medicines to hostages held in the Gaza Strip. According to the deal that has been mediated by Qatar and apparently also by France, medicines are going to be supplied via Qatar, either delivering them directly in the Gaza Strip or by another proxy through Egypt, then to the Gaza Strip, and they will get to the hostages. In exchange, Israel is going to increase the amount of medical supplies that are allowed to enter into the Gaza Strip. According to the information released on January 14th, CNN reported that as part of the deal, the medicine is going to be supplied to over 40 hostages with chronic illnesses, and that the mechanisms that Qatar is going to employ are still being worked out. Primarily, this relates to the fact that if Qatar is going to actually be the one to go into the Gaza Strip and deliver the medicines to the hostages, or if it is going to use the UN, the Red Cross, or another proxy. One of the sticking points is that Israel is demanding to have live footage proof of the hostages actually receiving the medicines, and this is a sticking point with Hamas. Hamas has not let the Red Cross or anyone see the hostages, so how this exactly is going to happen is still being worked out. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip. Rockets and mortars were sent from the Gaza Strip, targeting primarily the southern parts of Israel in the last 24 hours. There was a barrage of 9 rockets sent towards Sderot and the areas surrounding Gaza. These targeted the areas of Kfar Aza, Saad, Miflasim. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad specifically claimed responsibility for some of these launches. Regarding the fighting in the Gaza Strip, in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, bombings were reported in the Tel Hawa area in Gaza City, and other attacks were also reported in the Al Sabra area in the heart of Gaza City itself. According to some reports, these involved artillery fire as well, in addition to aerial bombings. Regarding the center of the Gaza Strip, in the Nuseirat refugee camp, a factory and compound for manufacturing mortars and another factory for manufacturing rockets was uncovered in a structure belonging to a humanitarian organization in the heart of the refugee camp. The IDF also reportedly raided a school in the area that was being used as a Hamas staging ground, and after a substantial gun battle, it was taken over. A major weapons cache was discovered. Other fighting was reported specifically in El Burej, as well as in El Maghazi refugee camp. Moving on to the southern parts of the Gaza Strip and Han Yunis, there were several rounds of bombings reported throughout the day. One of these rounds targeted the areas in the southern parts of the city, and another, according to reports on the ground, targeted the areas near the European hospital, which is one of the main hospitals operating in Han Yunis. The IDF reported that it targeted a truck transferring substantial weaponry for Hamas in Han Yunis and that it was destroyed, causing substantial explosions. In addition, it was reported today that the IDF took over Hamas headquarters after an intensive gun battle, confiscating weaponry and also diving gear belonging to Hamas's Navy units. Other news relating to the south, in Rafah, there were substantial bombings reported in the Mirage area. These are the northern parts of Rafah. This is important because in the last several days there have been more reports that the IDF is starting to turn its eye towards Rafah and seeing, is it going to just take over the Philadelphia line, or is it going to plan a more substantial operation in Rafah? If it does, this is going to be a major undertaking. The vast majority of internally displaced Palestinians are currently located in refugee camps in Rafah. According to one report, the IDF is planning to not let these Palestinians evacuate back up north, rather is going to order them to move into Han Yunis as the IDF moves from Han Yunis to Rafah. How this exactly is going to happen, or if it's going to happen, remains to be seen. However, the increased reports of bombings in Rafah may be showing us that the IDF is starting to look towards expanding its ground operation there. Amidst this, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant today stated that the intensive fighting phase in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip is officially over, and that it will soon end in the south as well. So this has been part of the move that the United States has been pressuring Israel to do, and that Israel has been saying it is gradually doing, to move from the intensive phase of taking over these different sites to the more localized phase of carrying out specific operations guided by intelligence and different commando units in order to either rescue hostages or hunt down the Hamas leadership. According to Minister of Defense Gallant, the initial plan for this phase was to take 3 months and is going on schedule. Amidst this, it was reported today that the IDF is going to pull one of its 4 divisions that are operating in Gaza, Division 38, out of the Gaza Strip. This division was operating in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, primarily in the areas of Zaytun, Al-Shati refugee camps, Sajaiya, Rimal, as well as some of the central refugee camps in the center of the Gaza Strip. It is being pulled out, leaving 3 full divisions that are active, alongside special forces and units that are still operating in the Gaza Strip. Regarding casualties, no IDF soldiers were reported injured or killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, leaving the number of IDF soldiers that have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began at 188, and between 1,113 and 1,200 soldiers that were injured since the invasion began. The reason for that disparity is because sometimes the IDF includes in the reports of soldiers that are injured, soldiers that were injured in different mortar attacks in the areas surrounding Gaza, so there are just different reports regarding how many soldiers have been injured. Regarding Palestinians, the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting that 132 Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of Palestinians that were killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 24,100. 60,834 Palestinians are reported injured in the Gaza Strip, and there are still reports of upwards of 10,000 Palestinians that are missing, buried under the different rubbles. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, telecommunications in the Gaza Strip are still largely down. This is now 72 hours since there was the first report that telecommunications were falling again. It is unclear if this is an initiated strike by the IDF that knocks out the telecommunications in the Gaza Strip, or if this is simply a result of the ongoing fighting and the collapse of power lines and different communication lines. This is the 7th time since the war began that telecommunications, cutting out cell phone networks, landlines, as well as internet, have fallen in the Gaza Strip. Right now, this is one of the longest times it has been blacked out, coming on 72 hours. Other news relating to the humanitarian situation, the IDF opened the Al-Rashid Road today in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip as a humanitarian corridor between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. for Palestinians to travel south. This was done while humanitarian aid trucks were making their way from the south to the north. In a footage that came from the area, different aid trucks, specifically those carrying food and flour, were stormed by hundreds of Palestinians. This is after no aid trucks were able to make it to the north in the last couple of weeks, and these trucks were completely raided by Palestinians who were looking for food. Other news, there was a report in the Lebanese Al-Ahbar network that after Israel made the claim in the International Court of Justice that Egypt is the one responsible for holding up humanitarian aid to Gaza, coordination between Israel and Egypt regarding the entrance of humanitarian aid has substantially diminished in the last couple of days. According to the report, Egypt has asked Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates to increase their aid and their involvement in the transfer of aid to the Gaza Strip. Possibly this is part of the disconnect between Israel and Egypt. There was no report by neither the IDF nor the Palestinian Red Crescent, nor the United Nations regarding how many aid trucks entered the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. This could also be associated with a breakdown of telecommunications and not knowing how many trucks actually managed to enter the Gaza Strip. The last report is from January 13th, where 108 aid trucks entered the Gaza Strip. Moving on to the West Bank. Starting from an attack that originated from the West Bank and took place in Israel. In Ra'anana, in the heart of Israel today, one woman was killed and 18 people were wounded after a car ramming and stabbing attack was carried out by two different people. According to reports, the attackers are relatives from the Bani Naim area in Hebron who were working in Ra'anana illegally. According to different reports, the attackers switched cars while stabbing people during the attack, carried out the attack in 3 different places, ramming into bus stations, injuring many teenagers. One woman was killed and 18 were wounded. Both attackers were arrested. Other news, the IDF carried out a raid today in the An-Najah University in Nablus, arresting members and leaders of Hamas's student body. According to the IDF reports, 9 Palestinians were arrested. According to Palestinian reports, 20 Palestinians were arrested in this raid. Other IDF activity was reported in Kilkilia and in the Abbasabad village, as well as in Beita near Nablus, in Nablus city, in Kafin near Tulkarem, as well as in Bani Naim itself. 3 Palestinians were reported killed in the last 24 hours in these different operations and confrontations with the IDF. 8 Palestinians reported injured and 5 arrested. In other news, there's also a report right before I started recording this that the IDF is starting activity in the Ein el-Sultan refugee camp near Jericho. We'll find out more about this tomorrow. Other news, in the Dora village near Hebron, a video was circulated today showing IDF soldiers during an operation, unclear when this operation was exactly, repeatedly kicking a Palestinian in the head while he was on the ground and then leaving him there without being arrested. According to reports, the Palestinian was injured and was assaulted by the IDF soldiers. This video is going very viral, and that's one of the reasons I'm mentioning it. There's no information about who the Palestinian is or when this actually occurred. Other news, several different instances of settler attacks against Palestinians were reported in the last 24 hours. I will note that these reports came in on different channels of social media and were not picked up by the major different news outlets, so details about them are still being worked out. According to reports, these settler attacks against Palestinians occurred in the Dir Sharaf area near Nablus and the Turmus Aya area near Ramallah. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon. Rockets and mortars were sent from southern Lebanon targeting various different parts of the north of Israel today. These targeted the areas of Kiryat Shmona, Matat in the Upper Galilee. There were also rockets sent towards Margaliot, Adamit, Zarit, and Malachia. Yesterday, January 14th, 2 Israelis were killed from an anti-tank missile that was sent towards Kfar Yuval. Hezbollah also claimed responsibility today for a cross-border attack in Hanita. However, the IDF did not make any note of this, so it is unclear what that cross-border attack actually involved. Regarding IDF retaliation, substantial bombings were reported against a Hezbollah operational infrastructure in the Maruna Ras area. Other activity was also reported in Hula, in El Jabin, in Sihin, and in Marjayun. Al-Manar, which is Hezbollah's news outlet, reported that IDF attacked the Markaba village as well, and Al-Miad, another Hezbollah affiliate, also reported a substantial array of attacks in Hanin. The IDF did not make any note of these. Usually these attacks either target Hezbollah infrastructure, different warehouses, launching sites, or things like that. Very little reports about what the IDF was actually targeting in the last 24 hours. Other news, the Syrian Human Rights Observatory stated today that Israel carried out an attack in Haleb, northwestern parts of Syria. The IDF did not make any note of this. Syria did not make any note of this, so these reports may come in later. Right now, unclear what happened. I will add that the Syrian Human Rights Observatory is usually fairly accurate when it comes to reporting Israeli attacks, so likely there was an Israeli attack in Haleb. We will probably find out more about that tomorrow. Moving on to some of the regional developments. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards today took responsibility for a substantial attack in the Erbil area of Iraq. According to the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, they attacked a U.S. base that was hit with ballistic missiles. Al Jazeera also reported the international airport in Erbil was also struck. Al-Miadin stated that several different explosions were heard in the area. Later, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard also announced that they attacked an espionage headquarters of the Mossad in the Kurdish area of Iraq, that is right near Erbil, and other spy centers in Erbil as well. They also stated that they carried out an attack against ISIS targets in Syria in response and in retaliation to ISIS's attack that occurred in Iran on the anniversary of the death of Qasem Soleimani. Reuters, however, quoted 2 U.S. senior officials stating that no U.S. targets were hit in Erbil. Right now, it is unclear what exactly happened there. It is clear that Iran carried out a substantial attack. According to Iran, it attacked both a U.S. base, it attacked other anti-Iranian affiliates, it attacked an espionage center of the Mossad, as well as attacking ISIS. The only response that came out so far is the United States stating that no actual U.S. targets were hit. Other news related to regional developments. Despite the fact that the coalition surrounding Yemen is denying that it is continuously carrying out attacks, Sky News in Arabic reported that 6 Houthi operatives and 2 Hezbollah experts were killed in a coalition attack that was carried out yesterday in the Hudaydah area. According to reports, a missile launching site was attacked, as well as a Houthi operational unit. Right now, the coalition is taking responsibility for 2 rounds of attacks that occurred several days ago. Since then, there have been repeated reports of explosions that are going off in the Hudaydah port. The coalition is stating that it is not carrying out these attacks. Unclear what happened. Sky News in Arabic is reporting that 6 Houthi operatives were killed, but more importantly, 2 Hezbollah experts that were assisting the Houthis were also killed in these attacks. Moving on to some of the political and general trends in the last 24 hours. Defense Minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, gave a speech tonight in which he explicitly challenged Netanyahu, stating that, I'm quoting, "The lack of political decisions are going to end up harming the military campaign." Opposition leaders in Israel stated that Netanyahu and Gallant are not speaking to each other, and that specifically the politics between them are getting worse and worse. These reports come amidst growing friction in the war cabinet between different sides, and specifically between Minister of Defense Gallant and Prime Minister Netanyahu and other members of the cabinet. On January 14th, it was reported that Defense Minister Gallant called on the government to regulate the entrance of Palestinian workers from the West Bank and allow their re-entry into Israel in order to alleviate the economic pressure there. And as well, he called on the government to figure out how to complete the transfer of funds that Israel is holding to the Palestinian Authority in order to avoid a complete economic crash. He stated, and I'm quoting, "Hamas is trying to link Gaza and the West Bank and ignite the region. We have to stop this in any way and regulate the workers and monies. I say it in the clearest possible way. A strong Palestinian Authority is an Israeli security interest, nothing less." This, of course, came under heavy condemnation from the different hawkish elements within the government. Netanyahu did not himself respond to this. Right now, Gallant is seemingly criticizing the fact that the government is just stalling the situation in the West Bank, and he is noting that the security establishment is saying the West Bank is about to explode. Related to this, the IDF reported today that it pulled the elite Duvdevan unit, this is one of the IDF's most top elite units, out of the Gaza Strip and was forced to transfer it to the West Bank for fears of these escalations. The IDF specifically cited that this will damage the war effort in the Gaza Strip, but that the economic situation in the West Bank is absolutely dire and is leading the area to the brink of explosion. All this political turmoil joins other reports about divisions within Israel's war cabinet. Minister Gantz and Minister Eisenkot, both from the status list, are apparently calling on the war cabinet to prioritize the release of hostages and coming to a hostage deal and only then focus on destroying Hamas, while Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant believe that only military pressure will secure the successful deal and the release of hostages, and apparently the atmosphere in the war cabinet is less than productive. Other political news, the Saudi Asharak news network today quoted Hamas sources stating that Hezbollah had been part of a plan for an all-out invasion to Israel that was planned since 2021. However, that it backed down on October 7th after the U.S. sent warships to the region. This may end up proving critical for the way the war develops with Hezbollah. If this report is true, Hezbollah was prepared to join the war, however, didn't know exactly that it was going to break out on October 7th, and it was only the United States sending 2 different aircraft carriers and mounting heavy pressure and explicit threats against Hezbollah, Iran, and Syria that may have stopped Hezbollah from joining the war. Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip and the future of the war. There was a report in Israel on January 14th that President Biden and his surroundings are beginning to feel that Netanyahu is dragging out the war in Gaza for political reasons, and that is the reason that a hostage deal is not at the top of his agenda. He stated that the administration's patience is quickly fading, and Netanyahu appears to want to drag out the hostage deal for months because it keeps the war going, adding that unlike the first few weeks of the war, Netanyahu and Biden have not spoken to each other since December 23rd. Other news relating to the future and showing us this impatience that is even starting to brew within Israel regarding the government and specifically Prime Minister Netanyahu's lack of decision on what is going to happen in Gaza. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stated today in a press conference, and I'm quoting, "The end of the military campaign must be anchored in a political decision. Political thinking is what drives military campaigns. Lack of decision-making is going to end up harming our advancements in the military campaign." And he added later on, "In Gaza, Palestinians live, and therefore Palestinians will rule there in the future. The future government of Gaza must grow out of the Strip and must be based upon forces that are not hostile to the State of Israel, and our civilian alternative cares for the welfare of Gazan residents." So what we're starting to see is for the first time, senior ministers in Israel, specifically the Minister of Defense from within the war cabinet, is himself starting to be critical of the fact that Israel has not come up with their day after plan, that there is no decision for where the war is being led, that fighting is going on, according to Minister of Defense Gallant, quite successfully and on schedule. Fighting is going on, but there is no decision in the political establishment what this is going to lead to, and he's stating this is going to end up harming the successes of the military campaign. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.